It's the middle of the night. You're lying there staring at the ceiling, completely awake. The clock says 3:14 a.m. Your body feels exhausted. Your mind refuses to stop. And somewhere in the back of your skull, a quiet panic is building. What is wrong with you? Nothing, absolutely nothing. And the fact that you don't know that yet is one of the strangest side effects of living in the modern world. Because that feeling you're having right now, that restless, wide-awake, can't get back to sleep feeling in the middle of the night, your ancestors didn't just experience it. They expected it. They planned for it. They had a name for it. And what they did during those dark, silent hours between midnight and dawn was so different from what you do that it might be the single most disruptive change ever made to the human mind. Not by disease, not by war, not by civilization collapsing. By a light switch. Here's what actually happened. For most of human history, the vast, almost unimaginable stretch of time before electric light, people didn't sleep the way you do. They didn't fall unconscious at 11 p.m. and claw their way back to awareness at 7 a.m. in one long, unbroken block. That's not how your brain was built. That pattern was invented, and it was invented surprisingly recently. Before electric light, before gas lamps, before even reliable candles that burned through the night, human sleep looked completely different. Historian Roger Ekirch spent over 2 decades searching through diaries, court records, medical texts, and literature from the medieval and pre-industrial world. What he found was so consistent, across so many cultures and centuries, that it changed how sleep scientists look at the human brain. People didn't sleep once, they slept twice. Every night without exception, the average person would fall asleep shortly after dark, maybe 2 hours after sunset. Then somewhere around midnight they would wake up, fully, not groggy, not disoriented, awake and alert in the middle of the night in total darkness. This wasn't insomnia. This wasn't a disorder. This was called the first sleep, and what came next was called the second sleep. And the time between them had a name too. The watch. The watch wasn't terrifying, it wasn't a crisis. In pre-industrial society, people treated it the way you might treat a quiet Saturday morning, as unexpected free time, hours that belonged to nobody, hours before the demands of the day began. Some people used those hours to pray. The Christian church actually structured certain prayer times around this waking window. Monks and nuns scheduled something called matins, a set of midnight prayers, precisely because the faithful were expected to be awake at that hour anyway. It wasn't a burden, it was built into the rhythm of the night. Others talked, couples would lie in the dark and speak quietly, conversations that couldn't happen during the busy, crowded chaos of daylight. Neighbors would visit each other. Yes, in the middle of the night, before electric light made darkness something to fear, the watch was a social hour. And some people used the time differently. They thought, they processed. The watch became a kind of natural therapy, a window the brain opened every night to sort through the emotional residue of the day. Problems got examined in those hours, grief got held, decisions got made, dreams from the first sleep got interpreted, the way ancient cultures treated dreams as messages from somewhere deeper than the conscious mind. Now think about what you do at 3 a.m. You pick up your phone, you stare at a screen that floods your eyes with bright blue light, you check your messages, you scroll, you feel guilty about being awake, you try to force yourself back to sleep, you fail, you feel worse. The same waking window your ancestors used for reflection and prayer and quiet conversation, you fill it with anxiety about the fact that it's happening. But here's where the story gets more complicated. The question isn't just what they did during those hours. The question is, how was their sleep different in the first place? Because before you can understand the watch, you have to understand what it felt like to fall asleep when darkness meant something. When the sun went down in the ancient world, it didn't just get dark, it got cold. The temperature drop after sunset, especially in the northern latitudes where much of early human civilization developed, was significant. Fires provided heat, but fires burned down. By midnight in a cave or a simple shelter, the temperature had often dropped to whatever the outside air held. That matters more than most people realize. Your core body temperature is one of the primary signals your brain uses to regulate sleep. As your temperature drops, your brain begins producing melatonin, the hormone that makes you feel drowsy. As the temperature rises again, as your body heats back up in the early morning hours before dawn, your brain begins waking you. In the ancient world, that temperature curve happened twice every night. The fire burned down, temperature dropped, first sleep began. Around midnight, fires were often fed again, or body heat from sleeping companions raised the ambient temperature slightly. Core temperature climbed. The brain interpreted this as a biological cue: morning, time to wake. The second drop came toward dawn, as fire and body heat waned again, pulling people back toward the second sleep until true morning arrived. 2 fires, 2 temperature cycles, 2 sleeps. Researcher Jerome Siegel at UCLA studied the sleep patterns of 3 pre-industrial societies, groups in Tanzania, Namibia, and Bolivia, living without electricity, in conditions closer to ancestral human life than any modern population. His findings were striking. These populations didn't sleep more than modern people. They slept differently. Their sleep was anchored more to temperature than to darkness. They stayed awake for hours after the sun went down, socializing, staying near fire, and woke naturally before sunrise. Their actual sleep windows were shorter than what most modern sleep guidelines recommend, but the quality indicators were markedly different. Insomnia as a chronic condition was almost unknown. Almost nobody complained they couldn't sleep, because their bodies weren't fighting the schedule imposed on them. Their schedule and their biology were the same thing. Yours almost certainly aren't. This is where the story starts to feel personal. When Thomas Edison perfected the incandescent light bulb in 1879, he didn't just solve a practical problem. He didn't just make it easier to see after dark. He altered the most fundamental biological rhythm in the human body. Electric light flooded the hours after sunset with something the human brain had never encountered before: bright, sustained, blue spectrum light, the same spectrum the brain uses to distinguish midday from midnight. Every evening, for the first time in evolutionary history, millions of human brains began receiving the wrong signal. The signal said, "It is noon." Your melatonin production shut down, your temperature curve flattened. Your natural sleep rhythm, the one encoded in your DNA across hundreds of thousands of years of darkness, was quietly overwritten by something that had existed for less than 2 human lifetimes. And within a generation, the 2-sleep system collapsed. The watch disappeared, the first sleep and second sleep merged into one, and sometime around the early 20th century, a new idea began to circulate in medical literature: the idea that waking up in the middle of the night was a symptom, a malfunction, something to be fixed. Doctors began prescribing sedatives to eliminate the watch. Patients were told their midnight wakefulness was a sign of stress or anxiety or a sleep disorder. They were told their perfectly normal, ancestral, evolutionary behavior was a problem. Sleep psychiatrist Thomas Wehr at the National Institutes of Health ran one of the most revealing experiments in modern sleep science. He took a group of volunteers and exposed them to only 14 hours of darkness per day, mimicking pre-industrial conditions, for a full month. Within the first few weeks, nearly every participant's sleep pattern shifted. They started waking in the middle of the night. Not randomly, not with anxiety. They woke up calm, rested, and alert. They lay quietly in the dark, then they fell back asleep. 2 sleeps, separated by an hour or 2 of wakefulness. The biological pattern that had been suppressed by electric light reemerged almost immediately the moment light exposure was reduced. The watch came back. Their bodies hadn't forgotten. Yours hasn't either. Here is the detail that changes everything. During the watch, that quiet window between the first and second sleep, researchers found that the brain enters a state unlike any other in the 24-hour cycle. Prolactin levels spike. Prolactin is a hormone most people associate with breastfeeding, but its role is far broader. During the watch, prolactin floods the body in a wave that researchers describe as producing a state of calm, dreamy, almost meditative wakefulness, sometimes compared to the altered states produced by deep meditation or certain psychoactive substances. Ancient humans weren't just awake in the middle of the night, they were chemically different. Their brains were bathed in a hormone that made the dark hours feel peaceful, meaningful, different from daylight wakefulness in a way that felt, to pre-industrial people, almost sacred. That's why they prayed during the watch. That's why they had visions. That's why the conversations that happened between midnight and dawn felt different from every other conversation of the day. They weren't imagining it. Something real was happening. Now think about the last time you woke at 3 a.m. and picked up your phone. The bright screen, the news, the scroll, the artificial noon that your ancestors never encountered. You're not just disrupting your sleep. You're interrupting the most chemically unique window your brain opens in any 24-hour period. So what do you do with this? Most sleep doctors won't tell you to restructure your entire life around 14 hours of darkness. That's not practical. Electric light isn't going away. But the framework changes everything. When you wake at 3 a.m., your brain is not broken, it is not anxious, it is not malfunctioning, it is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The fact that you're awake in the middle of the night isn't the problem. The panic about being awake is the problem. Your ancestors knew that. They lay in the dark, they let the prolactin rise, they thought quietly, they whispered to whoever was beside them, they waited, and when the second sleep came, gently, without effort, they surrendered to it. They didn't fight the night. They lived inside it. It's the middle of the night. You're lying there awake in the dark. And now you know something almost no one alive knows. This moment was designed, not by accident, not by disorder, by 300,000 years of human evolution. Your brain opened this window deliberately. The quiet, the darkness, the strange calm, they were gifts, not symptoms. For most of human history, the hours between midnight and dawn were the most human hours of all. The question isn't why you're awake. The question is what you're going to do with the silence. For most of human history, people slept in 2 separate shifts, and the quiet hour between them was so chemically unique that ancient cultures treated it as sacred, because the brain flooded itself with a hormone that made the dark feel like a different world entirely.